By the fall of 1900, Galveston had become something extraordinary. The richest city per capita in the American South. In this video, I use modern AI tools to bring historic photographs to life, allowing us to move through Galveston as it appeared in the weeks before and after September 8, 1900. What you're about to see is a city that believed it was invincible. The ocean proved otherwise. This is Galveston in the summer of 1900, population approaching 38,000. The Strand district ran parallel to the harbor. Banks and trading houses lined the street. It was called the Wall Street of the Southwest. The port was the third busiest in the United States. Cotton filled the warehouses. Ships arrived daily from across the Gulf. Wealth was concentrated here. The city had the highest per capita income in Texas. Victorian mansions lined the avenues. Victorian mansions lined Broadway. Electric lights illuminated the streets. The Grand Opera House hosted international performers. The island sat low. The highest point measured 8.7 feet above sea level. Ships in the Gulf appeared to float above the city streets. Some residents had proposed building a seawall. The majority dismissed this concern. Isaac Cline was the chief meteorologist at the Galveston Weather Bureau office. In 1891, he wrote an article in the Galveston Daily News. The article called the idea of a destructive hurricane striking Galveston a crazy idea. This Cline argued that a seawall was unnecessary. His opinion carried weight. The seawall was not built. In early September, Cuban meteorologists tracked a disturbance in the Caribbean. They predicted it would turn toward Texas. Washington disagreed. The storm would hit Florida instead. On September 7, Isaac Cline walked the beach to make his morning observations. The tide had risen above normal. Large swells rolled in from the Gulf. At the Tremont Hotel, guests finished breakfast on the veranda. A couple on their honeymoon watched the waves. The bride remarked on how beautiful they looked. The wind came from the north. Cline had never seen this pattern before. North winds should push swells away from shore. These were coming in. His brother Joseph worked at the same Weather Bureau office. Joseph believed a major storm was approaching. Isaac dismissed him. That evening, Cline received instructions from Washington. He raised 2 signal flags atop the levee building at 10:30 in the morning of September 8, a red flag with a black center. A storm of marked violence was expected. Above it, a white pennant indicated the storm would arrive from the northwest. Some Galvestonians knew what the flags meant. Many did not pay attention. The weather that morning was fair. Vacationers filled the beachfront hotels. Children played in the streets. Saturday was a normal workday. By mid-morning, rain began to fall. The wind picked up. Water started flowing into the streets near the beach. This was not unusual. Galveston streets flooded regularly during storms. Residents had built raised curbs specifically for this purpose. Children made rafts. They floated in the flooded streets. Spectators gathered at the beach to watch the waves. The giant bathhouses along the shore began to break apart. These structures had stood for years. Now boards flew through the air. At 9 a.m., the storm was 50 miles offshore. Cline arrived at his office and checked the barometer. It was falling rapidly. By noon, water covered much of the southern part of the city. The bay to the north was being pushed onto the island from behind. Cline finally understood. His brother had been right. But no hurricane warning had been officially issued. Cline left his office. He rode his horse through the flooded streets. He warned residents personally to seek higher ground. Most people had nowhere to go. The bridges connecting the island to the mainland collapsed around 3 p.m. The telegraph lines went down. The last message Cline sent to Washington read, Gulf rising rapidly, half the city now underwater. Cline went home to his wife and 3 daughters. His wife Cora was pregnant with their 4th child. His brother Joseph joined them. The house stood on stilts. Cline had designed it to withstand extreme weather. The wind exceeded 100 miles per hour. Trees bent horizontal. Boards flew like knives through the air. The storm surge rose higher than any point on the island. Water lifted houses from their foundations. Debris became battering rams. Cline's house held for hours. Then the walls gave way. The family was thrown into the water. They clung to floating wreckage. The debris drifted through the flooded city. Isaac held his youngest daughter, Esther. Joseph grabbed the other 2 girls. Cora Cline disappeared in the surge. They never saw her again. The storm peaked around 8 p.m. The wind began to decrease after midnight. Water slowly receded through the night. September 9 revealed the destruction. A wall of debris stood in the middle of the island. It stretched 3 miles long. It rose 30 feet high. The western, southern, and eastern portions of the city had vanished. Nothing remained standing. At least 6,000 people in Galveston had died. This was 1 in 5 residents. Thousands more died across the island. The Tremont Hotel where honeymooners had watched the waves was gone. The Grand Opera House was rubble. The mansions on Broadway had disappeared. Bodies could not be buried fast enough. Officials ordered pyres built on the beach. Thousands of corpses were burned. The smoke was visible for days. Cora Cline's body was not found until October 3. It lay under the same wreckage that had saved her family. Approximately 2,000 survivors left the island permanently. Some observers predicted Galveston would be abandoned. The remaining citizens disagreed. In January 1902, 3 engineers presented their plan: build a massive concrete seawall, raise the entire city. Galveston County issued bonds to fund construction. Nearly every resident purchased a bond. A janitor bought one. A millionaire bought 50. They were rebuilding together. Work on the seawall began in September 1902. The wall would rise 17 feet above mean low water. It would stretch over 3 miles. Construction required 5,200 railway cars of material. Workers arrived from across the country. The project became the largest engineering feat in American history at that time. The first segment was completed in July 1904, less than 2 years after starting. The city then began raising its grade. Workers enclosed quarter-mile sections with earthen dikes. They lifted every structure inside. Around 2,000 buildings were raised on hand-turned jackscrews. Men turned the screws inch by inch. A single house could take weeks to lift. 4 dredges brought sand from the Gulf. The sand traveled through a canal built through the city. Workers spread over 16 million cubic yards of fill. A 3,000-ton church was jacked up and filled beneath. Residents walked on raised wooden sidewalks during construction. The work continued for 8 years. In 1915, another hurricane struck Galveston. This storm was more powerful than the 1900 storm. Fewer than 300 people died. The seawall had worked. But Galveston never recovered its supremacy. Houston opened its ship channel in 1914. Trade shifted north. The Wall Street of the Southwest became a memory. Isaac Cline moved to New Orleans. There he spent the rest of his life studying hurricanes. He established that storm surge, not wind, was the killer. This knowledge reshaped hurricane science. He never remarried. He raised his 3 daughters alone. One of them later said he never spoke about September 8 again. The seawall was extended to 10 miles. The strand was restored. Today, over 7 million people visit Galveston each year. They walk on Seawall Boulevard. They eat in Victorian buildings. Few know they are standing on top of an entire city that was buried and rebuilt. The 1900 storm remains the deadliest natural disaster in American history. Hurricane Katrina killed 1,500 people. The Galveston storm killed more than 4 times that many in a single afternoon. In 1891, Isaac Cline wrote that a destructive hurricane was a crazy idea. 9 years later, that idea killed his pregnant wife. It killed 8,000 others. It destroyed the richest city per capita in the South. Galveston rebuilt anyway. The engineering was unprecedented. Raising an entire city while people lived in it had never been done. But the project proved something simpler, that a sandbar could beat the ocean if humans refused to leave. That even after losing everything, you could choose to stay and fight. The ocean tested that choice again in 2008. Hurricane Ike overtopped the seawall. The city flooded, homes were destroyed. Galveston rebuilt again. They always do.